Hi everybody and welcome to the easy way to screen print t-shirts, the Transfer Advantage. I'm Courtney Kubitza with Stahls TV, and today we're going to talk a lot about how to get started screen printing t-shirts, specifically talking a lot towards the Transfer Advantage. And when it comes to starting a t-shirt business or printing custom t-shirts, a lot of decorators tend to go towards screen printing. And it makes sense, it's the most widely used technology when it comes to printing t-shirts. You're going to get a durable print, you're going to get a great print that's soft and it feels comfortable on the garment, and so screen printing makes a lot of sense for decorators when getting started. Where the challenges come is when you look to direct screen print t-shirts yourself, there tends to be a cost associated with investment and equipment and just a learning curve in general. So what we're going to talk about today is how direct screen printing compares to screen printed transfers and how you can start to implement screen printed t-shirts in your business using just transfers and kind of understand the benefits and the disadvantages of each of those processes. So I want to talk a little bit first about screen printing and specifically direct screen printing and what it is. Most people understand what screen printing is. It's generally an ink that is pushed through a mesh screen, which used to be made of a silk, so that's why it was always called silk screening in the past. But you push that ink through and you create a print that's then onto the garment. And so when it comes to direct screen printing, there's a lot of benefits that you can get once you make the investment and you have the space to look into investment. So I want to show you guys a quick video from Ryonet. If you're not familiar with Ryonet, they're actually a screen printing supply company, and they do a lot of videos and education. And so I want to show you exactly how to direct screen print so we can understand the process and what goes into it if you're looking into that advantage. So we'll take a look at that video now.
Before we get started with the screen printing process, we realize some people might not know what screen printing is. So this section we're going to quickly overview how screen printing works and what it is. If you already know a little bit about screen printing, feel free to skip forward to the next section. Screen printing is a process of printing an ink through an open mesh onto a substrate. The ink is printed with a squeegee and it's printed through a stencil image through that mesh and onto a substrate. It also used to be known as silk screening because the mesh used to be silk that the ink was printed through. Now the mesh is made out of a polyester fiber, and the main term for it is screen printing, although a lot of people still refer to it as silk screening. Let's show how it works. First of all, you have a frame. On the frame, it's either made out of wood or aluminum, and it has mesh stretched across it. That's this material right here. The pink stuff you see on the screen, that's your stencil. That's called emulsion. It's coated on, and we'll show how to do that later, but this is a light sensitive product. Well, how do you get your image on your stencil? That's where a positive film comes into. Positive film is a light blocking film that is placed up against the emulsion. When we expose the screen with light, the emulsion becomes hard. However, the positive areas of the film, the black ink on the positive film, block out the light from reaching that area of the screen, leaving that area of the screen unexposed. After the screen is done exposing, you put it in a washout sink and rinse it out with water. The areas of the screen that were exposed with light are left hard. The areas underneath the positive film are unexposed and left soft. This part rinses out with water, leaving the mesh open so then you can print ink through it. Let's print our positive film and go expose it. In an artwork program like Photoshop or Illustrator, we'll design and print our artwork. This is printed using an Epson printer and an Accurate software to get the detail needed for this image. Now we're in our darkroom where we're going to line up our film and expose the screen. We'll line up using this light table with a pre-registration board on it. Now our film's lined up, let's take it over to the exposure unit. This unit shoots ultraviolet light directly into the screen, and it uses a vacuum to put pressure down on the screen. Once our screen's been exposed for the proper amount of time, we take it out of the exposure unit, take the film off, and bring it over to the washout sink. You can already see the undeveloped area of the image right there. And once we rinse that out with water, that will rinse open, leaving the mesh so we can screen print through it. Now let it dry and go print. Here we are at the press. You see our screens washed out. To print, we'll simply put it into the press, register it, tape it, and be on our way. Once we're registered up, we'll load up ink and print. Here we are. Now we either flash it with a flash dryer and cure it, or put it in a conveyor dryer. Then it's time to wear it, and we get on with our video. Once it comes out of the dryer, our shirt is cured and ready for wearing. Well, that's our basic overview of screen printing. Now this DVD will take you step by step in the actual specifics of the process. Let's get started.
So, as you saw with direct screen printing in that video, there are a lot of steps in the process, and so that creates a little bit of a learning curve, especially if you're looking to get started with screen printing. And so we have to consider there's a learning curve with artwork creation, there's a learning curve in just the technical process and being able to create the screens and burn them, and then create the process just in printing and drying the t-shirt. And so those are some challenges that we have to overcome. Another challenge that we see often with direct screen printing is the space and the investment that's required. So the space in general is you need a larger space. You saw in the video he was using a larger location in what would look like, say, a basement or a warehouse. So you would need a space traditionally about 10 feet of a square area, or a 12-foot by 16-foot space to be able to put all of the equipment you need to direct screen print. So here we're looking at, like I said, a basement, a garage, or a warehouse or shop where you have location to be able to do that, versus screen printed transfers like we'll look at here in a little bit. The mess that comes with direct screen printing obviously is another consideration. So even if I have a 10-foot square room in my house, I may not want to be direct screen printing because of the mess in my guest room. And so those are some things to consider when we're looking at space and what we're ready to invest in the purchase. An investment in the machine and the equipment in general is another consideration. If you guys have never attended a live Stahls TV class, on the right-hand side of your screen, there's actually an option for handouts. And so there's a handout that kind of compares direct screen printing to screen printed transfers, and that's going to allow you to actually be able to kind of walk through some of the points we're covering today and compare them. But one of the points that are on that PDF is actually just stating that the cost of investment, so looking at, say, $15,000 versus $700 for a quality heat press, and how that compares. So we can see, obviously, I can make my money back much quicker on a $700 investment versus $15,000. And so that's what we want to teach you guys here today, is how to get ROI and start making money as soon as possible printing t-shirts. And so we're going to show that through the transfer way. And screen printed transfers are very similar to direct screen printing and the durability. The way they're actually manufactured is, this would be an example of a plastisol or a screen printed ink transfer. And so what happens is the ink is directly printed down onto a release paper, similar to the way it was printed on a t-shirt in the video. And then once the ink is printed, it is flash cured and then sent to you to be able to heat press onto the item that you're going to be printing to fully cure and create a durable print. So a quality heat transfer is identical to a quality screen print. So you're going to get the same durability, which is important to note. When it comes to screen printed transfers, one other thing to mention is just the space and the mess. So I talked a lot about, and you saw in the video, the space and the mess that is created with direct screen printing. And so another consideration is, do I have the time to be able to do that? And so with screen printed transfers, I've got less space, so I can do it in as little as 3 feet of a counter space using my heat press transfers and t-shirts laid out. versus a large room that I would need for screen printing. And so that's one of the big benefits of using a transfer as well. We'll also look at just speed and being able to print them in general. And so I'm going to head over to the heat press, and I want to take a look at just the process for plastisol screen printed transfers and kind of how they compare to direct screen printing. And so with direct screen printing, we saw the multiple steps. So we were looking somewhere around 15 steps. I've heard it as low as 8 steps, as high as 15. But regardless, there's a lot of steps that are involved in creating one screen printed t-shirt. Now, of course, as you create all of these steps to get to the printing process, it gets to be much quicker to print those items. But when it comes to ordering screen printed transfers, it's really as simple as ordering your transfer, getting that in from the supplier, and then it's really kind of slimmed down to just 3 steps. So I've got my transfers ordered in. All I have to do is load my garment onto my heat press, like I have here. And there's tips for centering garments. The largest challenge and learning curve that we see, in addition to artwork with screen printed transfers, which we'll talk about here later, is just alignment. And there's plenty of tools to help you ensure that you're getting it centered and lined up on the platen. I like to pull the collar of the shirt center, making sure I have the same amount of material on both sides, and then pull that collar off to get a nice flat print area. So once I have my shirt loaded on, my first step there, all I have to do is take my second step to position my transfer, going about 3 inches down on the shirt, and then I can heat press this for the recommended application. This transfer is called Goof Proof. It's a transfer ink formula from Transfer Express, so they're a custom transfer company. And I can hot peel this carrier back, and I've got a completely screen printed t-shirt. So when we're looking and comparing the 15 steps that it took to get that one print on the item, this was much more simple for me to be able to create a screen printed t-shirt or a screen printed item just by placing and pressing the transfer down. And so this is a great example of a nice soft print on a t-shirt that's a single color design. But one other benefit that I really love about using transfers over direct screen printing is the advantage of using multiple colors. And so when it comes to printing multiple colors with screen printing, you saw it there in the video. We basically have to create the screen and go through that same process for every single color. And that's often why you see a lot of decorators going towards screen printing for 1 and 2 color designs and then looking at other print technologies for multiple colors. Now with screen printed transfers, I think it's important for me to mention that even though you can get multiple colors all printed on one sheet like I have here, in these neon colors, I know they're a little bit difficult to see, so I'll put them up on the overhead camera for you guys to be able to see a little bit better. But the transfers here, these specific transfers are still going to be priced by the color of your design. So even if you're doing multiple colors, you want to always keep in mind to make sure that you're keeping your color count relatively low and your cost high, because that's always where screen printing is going to make the most sense for your business. So I'm going to take these transfers, and it's a little hard to see, but you're starting to see there's actually 3 images on this sheet. And we talk later about price advantages of using screen printed transfers and how to cut your cost. This process, which we call gang sheeting, is going to be incredibly important. So I'm going to grab some scissors to trim the transfers apart. This gives me an option for having a left chest logo, maybe a logo for a sleeve, and also a print for the back of my jacket. And so when you're printing items with your heat press, traditionally heat printing can allow you to print basically any fabric item that you can lay flat on the press. And so it opens you up to a lot of opportunities aside from just the t-shirts and the sweatshirts. So I've loaded my sweatshirt on here. I'm going to remove some of the fuzz that could get into the way. Preheat my item just to get some of the moisture and wrinkles out. And then I'm going to line up the back design of my transfer. And so with the back designs, one thing I didn't point out yet, because I don't think we've been able to see the overhead camera, is you'll notice the back of the Transfer Express transfers even have a grid on them. And so that's really helpful for alignment when you're wanting to make sure that it's getting straight. You can use those grid marks as a line. Now with back placements, I traditionally go about 5 inches down from the top of the hooded sweatshirt. I always like to make sure that I'm not going too far up, though, that my hooded part of my sweatshirt is going to cover the full part of the design. So I always use that as a guide before I press it. But traditionally you want to be the top of the design between those 2 shoulder blades. Now the Goof Proof again applies as quick as 4 seconds. So I'll lock this down. Once that's complete, I can peel back my carrier. So here I have a 3-color design. So it was easy to get multiple colors on one sheet. I didn't have to worry about having additional screens burned or additional labor costs tied up in this, where with direct screen printing, every increase in color is an increase in labor that you have to put into the garment. And so while cost still increases, you're not the one doing the work, and so it helps to be able to apply it very quick and easy for multiple colors. Now that I have the back printed, I can easily personalize the front as well to complete that look. So I'm going to switch out my platen. So one recommendation I always make if you're looking into investing into a heat press, and this is your first business, is to look for a heat press with interchangeable platens. And so you saw how quickly I just undid a latch and dropped in that larger size of the platen. And so with that, what I can do is I can drop a smaller size in, and I can really start to open my business up to multiple print locations, left chest, small bags, pants, all kinds of different applications with this small interchangeable platen. And you can add these as you go. A lot of suppliers also will offer packages, like Stahls will offer the 6x10 in packages and things like that for you to be able to get started. Now that I've loaded that on there, I just want to get it to a nice flat print surface, making sure that plastic zipper is falling off. That's another thing to point out when you're just getting started with heat transfers. You want to make sure to reduce any kind of pressure on the item, and so that 6x10 platen allowed me to do that. Also, this plastic zipper here could have easily scorched. So by getting it off with that 6x10 platen, it helps to reduce or eliminate that. Preheat to get some of the moisture and wrinkles out. It's always just a recommendation for heat transfers to get the garment started. Then I'm going to line up my transfer application. Once I have that lined up and ready to go, I am just going to press this down again for 4 seconds in a firm pressure. And I have a completed design. So very quick, very easy for me to print multiple print locations and be able to order transfers, to be able to do a left chest and also a back of this t-shirt, sweatshirt design. And so I'll switch back to my camera angle here so you guys can see the finished result for that jacket. So we have a nice neon print on the front, and then we also had that same print area on the back to be able to get a nice screen printed finish. And so it was really quick, really easy to get the multiple colors on here. And so when I started talking a lot about screen printed transfers, you can see the application is very easy, and we'll talk more later about more sales opportunities. But the largest learning curve that I often hear from decorators whenever they're just jumping into the t-shirt business, especially if you're like myself, where I came from absolutely no art or graphic design background, is the designing of t-shirts. And so you may have great ideas for your t-shirts, or you may have great sales ability, and so you want to start printing these t-shirts and you want to start selling them, but artwork is always a challenge. And so I want to talk through 2 different applications. Back over at the computer, we can talk through ways to get artwork that's a little bit better for your business. And so I'll switch back over to that angle there. The first way is obviously through custom transfers. And so what a lot of decorators will do is they'll order stock transfers or custom transfers from many suppliers. And so stock transfers are traditionally kind of what you see more in beach shops, where there's specific sayings or specific logos. One that I'll be talking about a little bit later are some opportunities with license transfers. And so we'll head back over to my computer and we'll look at a couple of options for custom transfers. So custom transfers is obviously the easiest way to get started. And so the Wild Side is a company that offers a ton of different stock transfers, whether they're screen printed ink transfers, as well as different transfer types for sequins and rhinestones and all kinds of cool stuff. So that's a website that's really great to check out if you're just looking to start creating stock transfers. Also, as you start to look at more options for license transfers and things where you think you have a sales opportunity, one other transfer we'll look at later is actually a U.S. Army license transfer. And so Stahls has a ton of different license transfer options that you'll see on their website that give you an opportunity to create some really cool items and apparel with license transfers and start selling into unique markets like the U.S. Army, which is really a popular market. And now the second option that I want to talk about is one that most excites me when I talk about custom transfers and custom t-shirts, and that is being able to create custom artwork from scratch or from templates to get started. And so being able to offer custom finishes to your customers. And so what I'm looking at here is the Easy View Designer from Transfer Express. And so this designer basically allows you to create any artwork, any design from templates. And so it really opens you up to a complete arsenal of being able to decorate a ton of items with your heat press and for a ton of different markets. And so to get started, I like to choose the idea book layouts, and rather than starting from scratch and just using clip arts and text, which I can do that. But they've got thousands of templates already in there. They're updating them every year, so they're very current and very on point. And so I like to just kind of start there and see which ones make the most sense for my business. And so I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and I'm going to select, let's see, I'm going to go with this Compton Eagles one here. And the cool thing is they've got a ton of different templates. Actually, I'll go back and just take a look real quick at some of the different markets that they have. So this gives you an opportunity as to how many markets can I start selling to. So they've got them for schools, they've got them for sports, they have them for different occasions, businesses and corporate companies. They have them for all kinds of different promotional layouts and just a bunch of really cool, unique stuff. I tend to start with what's new. And the coolest thing about this, as you'll see, as I start really to customize the logos, is that I'm not limited to just because my design I'm choosing says Compton Eagles Varsity. I'm not limited to making this into a school design. If I love this layout, I can 100% customize it to be a logo for a small business or some other event. And so what I do once I create the design on the, once I drop the design down onto my item, is I can start to customize it for my business. And so let's say I'm decorating not for Compton Eagles, but instead I'm going to be decorating for the Morgantown Hawks. And so I changed, just by selecting the text, I was easily able to edit the text to say Morgantown instead of saying Compton. If I want to change the font, maybe I don't love that athletic font, I could easily do that in the font editing. If I want to change this into a multicolor design, or I don't want the color black, I can do that here. So let's say they are red. So I'm going to select a red color there for the Morgantown. They're the Hawks and not the Eagles, so I do the same editing to the Eagles part of the design. I can double click it, edit the text, or just click once to open the editor. And you'll notice once I click OK, it's actually dropped the Hawks and resized it to fit that graphic, which is really cool since I don't have to distort it or move it. Now, if it didn't look the way I want, I could easily drag this to distort or make the image larger to fit the design. We'll go ahead and leave that the color that it is. Go ahead and delete out my eagle. I can do that by selecting the image and clicking swap, or just clicking delete on my keyboard. Now, if I click swap, I can go in here and I can look for an artwork that fits my design. And so I like this single color hawk here. I'm going to drop that down into the center here. Like I said, I can drag it, make it larger or smaller, however I would like. Change the color to be red so it matches the school colors of red and black. And then I'm going to leave this as a varsity image here. Let's say I'm going to be editing this to be for next year, so I'm going to put 2017. So you can start to see how I can really start to customize and change designs for my customers and being able to create artwork. And so there's a lot of templates and a lot of power in this. Another thing that's really cool is the ability to add special effects throughout the design. So everybody knows that patterns and distress effects are really trending, especially if you're looking to decorate for schools or for different organizations. And so I can add any of these distressed patterns throughout my entire design and just create a really cool, trendy piece for my customers. And so that automatically drops that special effect throughout. Likewise, if I wanted to add the patterns, you can see some of the pattern options that are available for in the Easy View Designer for tiger stripes, chevrons, all kinds of different prints for different markets. And so I'll click out of that. And one other thing I mentioned earlier is the ability to gang sheet. And I talked about that a lot with the design that I did with the 3-color resort on the orange hooded sweatshirt and some of the benefits that you can get by gang sheeting. And one thing that I often find is that you'll look at different pieces of artwork. And this sheet that we're looking at here is actually a full 11¼ by 14 sheet. And so what I recommend to all of my customers is to be able to leverage that sheet in any way that you can. And so rather than just printing that Morgantown Hawks in the 11 by 9 inch design that I have, and I can see my design size here, there may be some opportunities for me to actually size it down a little bit and then drop either multiple designs on one item or be able to drop extra designs on here. And so let's say I want to maybe make a left chest logo with some pieces of the artwork, and I can easily do that by adding different layouts or adding different clip art into my design. And so I'll go in and I'm going to actually add more layouts from the design. And the one thing that I really like about this process is this design doesn't have to be the exact same image. In fact, it doesn't even have to be for the Compton school that I'm decorating for, or the Morgantown school that I'm decorating for. And so if I want to decorate, say, a pair of sweatpants, which we'll show you a little bit later, I can actually print and drop in that same design. I could print multiples if I want to decorate maybe the sleeve. I can make a extra one of those designs and drop them down. So now I have 2 sleeve print options to add to my Morgantown Hawks design. As you start to print more locations and more print areas on garments, you're going to find that you're going to be able to sell the item for more, be able to command a higher price, simply because you're adding more elements to the item. And the nice thing about using the sheet this way is that it's not costing you anything extra because you're paying for the sheet regardless. So it's basically like free money. And so I'm going to change both of these to say Morgantown for my sleeve designs. If I want, I can always resize these to be the size that I think they should be to fit these sleeves. And I even have one small little area here, so if I had left chest graphics, or maybe I wanted to just drop a couple extra eagles on here that I could print in different print locations, I can copy and paste and create duplicates of those as well. And so it really just starts to maximize your print area and what you can do with this designer. And now one other thing that I always take a look at, in addition to being able to gang multiple designs, and I'll just fill in this one extra spot so we've got a completely full sheet, is on the right hand side of the designer. It's going to actually create, as you're creating designs for your customers, it's going to actually tell you the pricing that you have for the transfer sheet and help you get a price break for the design. And so let's say the print method is going to be screen print. I can choose my ink transfer type. Goof proof is the one that I use in the beginning of the session. That's going to be the transfer type that I would use for 90% of the items I'm going to be printing. The only time I usually switch to a different transfer is if I want a special effect, or if I'm moving towards performance wear, which will show you some options for printing performance wear with screen printer transfers as well. So I'll keep goof proof. The fabric type, I'm going to be putting this on that says 100% cotton. I can have the option for them to trim my designs apart. Of course, that adds some cost, so I'm going to keep that as a no. I like to keep my costs pretty low. I can put the number of images that I have. So let's say I need to print this for 100 different shirts for the school. Select OK. And then once I put that image quantity in there and all of those have been edited, you can see I've got 2 colors. I have black and red. I can see that it's going to cost me $2.50 per sheet for this design. Now, if I was able to resize 2 of these t-shirt designs together onto this sheet, then that's going to allow me to be able to cut my cost significantly as well. So we'll look at an option for doing that. One other thing to mention is if I select all of my artwork that's on this sheet, and I change the colors to both being black, so I'm just doing a single color design, maybe on a red shirt, you'll see how my cost over here on the right hand side of my screen drops significantly. And so you can start to really generate some price quotes for your customers by being able to see what your cost would be for 1 color versus 2 color, and being able to price them per sheet as well. And so one other thing about this right hand side of the screen before we look at one more example in the Easy View Designer is the ability to preview and share. And so you can create proofs for your customers and things you can send out to them by showing them their artwork on a specific item. And so Transfer Express also sells apparel, so it allows you to select any of the apparel from their catalog, being able to show your customers exactly what it would look like on that exact item, send them a proof of that, and then the other cool thing about it is you can order your apparel with your transfers and cut some cost there too, and save some time. And so I'll just go ahead and pick a quick t-shirt, drop it in here in a maroon color. Now if you are going to choose to do photo prints and you've ganged images together like I've done, you would want to obviously delete the sleeve prints and things like that to be able to send them a photo proof with that. But I can put a watermark in. I put Courtney's T's for my watermark so nobody can steal my design, so nobody can steal my design. And then I can share it via the email, or I can share it manually by downloading it directly to my computer and saving it in a folder. And so there's a lot of power in being able to create and share proofs to your customers very quick and easy in this design tool. So one other example I want to be able to show you is I'm going to start with a new design and look at some of the real benefits of gang sheeting for multiple transfers and how to cut your costs that way. So I'm going to start with my idea book layouts. Again, I can scroll through and select the layout that is best for my customer. Let's say I just want a small 10-inch by, say, 3-inch logo. Here I've got, it's about 11 by 4. I'm actually going to go ahead and size it down a little bit. Be a little smaller for what I'm looking for. And now with this specific piece of artwork, again, I'll make the same editing changes. Let's say I'm printing this for the Morgantown Hawks again, so I'm going to edit my Compton to now say Morgantown. I'm going to change the Eagles to say Hawk. And this part's really cool because it really shows you how it just kind of edits and changes the text and drops it right down in there. Let me go ahead and make sure it's not all caps so it fits in there well. There we go. So you can see how it dropped that Hawks down in there, and it just completely changed that background pattern to fit the item that I had printed on there and created that contour for me, which is really cool. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of designing that a lot of people run into. I'll delete out my, swap out my eagle head here for a hawk design. So let's go ahead and just type in hawk. Let's choose a different hawk for this one. I just need one of those. So I've dropped my hawk down on here, and so as I start to create my design for this part, now you'll start to see as I create my proof for this and start to figure out how many of these that I need. I'll drop in 100, I'll select my fabric, and then when it starts to calculate my cost, although I haven't gang sheeted this together myself, this does the work for me. And so what it does is it tells me that it's going to be 88 cents per image or $2.64 per sheet. And so this designer in Transfer Express knows that they're going to be able to print 100 of these in 34 sheets, and that cuts my cost significantly to 88 cents per image by being able to just size my design in a way that multiples fit on there. The other thing that I really like is that you'll notice here above is it tells me that I can save $11.71 by increasing my order to 105 pieces. And so what happens a lot with t-shirt orders, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced this, is a lot of people will come back and they'll order extra t-shirts. They forgot there's 2 other kids that are in the school that also need that same t-shirt. And so if you were direct screen printing, you'd have to burn the screen again and create those t-shirts for just those 2 people. But when you order transfers with a few extras, you'll have them in the back pocket to where you can easily press them. And this way, you probably saw when I edited the image from being 100, where I was paying 88 cents per image, to 105, I not only got 5 extra images, but I'm now only paying 74 cents an image. So I just dropped my cost by about 10 cents and got extra transfers. And so that's one great way to look at where you can get the price breaks and where you can cut your cost. And this design tool not only helps you create the artwork for it, but takes all of the guesswork out of that as well. And so I'll switch away from the Ease of You designer. If you haven't taken a look at that designer through Transfer Express's website, I encourage you to go to transferexpress.com and set up an account. One way to do that as well is to order a marketing kit through Transfer Express that automatically gets you access to the EasyView Designer and get you set up to start printing t-shirts with screen printed transfers. It's a cool kit. It comes with an idea book that has a lot of templates. It's personalized for your specific business, and so that way you can show your customers what you're actually printing for them, or what they can choose as far as templates for you to print for them. It comes with some coupons. It comes with a color selector, and so there's a whole lot of things that you can get in that marketing kit, as well as 30 transfers, and that allows you to really get your samples ready to send out on sales calls and show your customers what you can create with direct screen printing. And so those are some of the real benefits of Transfer Express and as far as the marketing kit goes. But before we end this session, I want to talk more about sales opportunities and what you can create with your screen printed transfers and your heat press. And so we'll head back over to my heat press for another application. I'm going to switch back out my 6x10 platen, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about those custom Army transfers that we talked about. Take out my 6x10, so you saw how easy it was for me to undo the latch on the interchangeable platen. I can drop my 16x20 back in. And now I'm set up and ready to start printing my t-shirt from that left chest print that I just printed earlier. And so it's a nice added benefit when you're starting to print items, and a lot of the heat presses, even those that are more inexpensive, like $1,000, then you can still get those same interchangeable platens with that. So you don't have to make a huge investment to get these benefits. And so again, I've loaded my shirt on, making the collar center with the platen, making sure I've got the same amount of material on both sides. I'll preheat to get some of the moisture and wrinkles out, and then I can line up my Army transfer. Again, this is the stock transfers that I had mentioned, and it opens you up to being able to print to markets without paying the licensing fees that you would traditionally have to pay to be able to print for something like the U.S. Army or different applications. And so that's one of the cool things about stock transfers, is you can still offer those to your customers as long as you're purchasing from a supplier that offers the stock transfer option. And this transfer traditionally applies at 385 degrees for 10 seconds. I'm a little low at 365 for my last application. I forgot to kick it up. So we're going to go ahead and press it at this application as well. If it doesn't work, we'll give it some time to heat back up and we'll try again. We got our 10-second application. Peel back my carrier. Looks like I still needed those 10 extra seconds, so I got a little bit of ink come up on the carrier. So you want to make sure you're following the recommended application, but still a really nice design element when you're looking to be able to print stock transfers and different designs onto custom t-shirts. And so a nice soft, really soft plastisol ink transfer there. For the next application, I'm actually going to leave this down at 365 degrees, so I'm just changing the temperature and time on the Fusion heat press. And each transfer that you buy, whether it's a screen printed transfer that's a stock transfer or comes from Transfer Express, is going to tell you specifically what to apply the item that you're decorating at. And so it'll tell you 365 degrees for 4 seconds. It'll tell you 385 degrees for 10 seconds. You don't have to play a guessing game. That comes with the transfer that you're purchasing. So next we're going to take a look at how to print a bag with the screen printed transfers and some opportunities there. The nice thing I love about heat presses is they offer a great opportunity to be able to print a lot of items, including different promotional items in bags. And so this is another example of how we've just ganged up artwork to add some left chest prints or some bag locations. I'm going to trim them apart from my larger design. And then we can load up our bag to be able to print. And so when I go to print this bag, I can no longer just lay this on my 16x20 flat, and there's a lot of things that can get into the way. Obviously there's a ton of bulk, there's some zippers, there's a lot of seams, so it would cause some inaccurate pressure on my item. So I have to get this print area flat. To do that, I'm just going to switch back out that 16x20. Again, a fast application. And I'm going to drop in a smaller size. So I've got quite the assortment of platens over here. I'm going to choose an 8x10. Lock that in, and then I can load my bag on. Now as you're switching out a bunch of different platens, I don't think I've mentioned, I always like to sometimes check my pressure as well to make sure what I'm printing is going to get the right pressure before I press it down, especially for non-wearable items like this bag. So this is making sure all of the bulk and the seams are hanging down below so they're not going to get into the way of my application. And I'm going to go ahead and check that pressure. Looks like I'm getting the right pressure that I need for this application. This transfer is just another goof-proof transfer. So in the open, when I said that's probably 90% of the transfer ink types that you'll use, I was not joking. That one tends to be the most widely used in the industry when it comes to looking for different transfer types. 4 seconds. Hot peel my carrier. And then I was able to create a completely personalized bag for Yorkshire Elementary. And the nice thing is I could pair this with a t-shirt, take that same large print, and package the items together to be able to sell multiple print locations. And so I want to look at one more print location, and that is printing onto pant legs with multiple prints. And so as we start to look at printing more items with the heat press, being able to easily customize and print sweatpants is really easy. There is also a sleeve and leg platen. So if you have the option for the interchangeable platens, you guys can see how easy it is for me to make the changes and print all of these items. If not, you can still get started often with heat printing all of these items with print perfect pads or even heat printing pillows if you're using other transfer technologies. So once I have that item completely loaded on, I'm going to remove my pocket that I can feel was inside there, getting a nice flat print area. Just like ironing out a pair of pants, you want to make sure that you're filling no bumps and seams and you're getting a flat print area before you get started. I'm going to take my transfers where I have multiple designs on here. Cut up the V for the volleyball. Set that aside. And now we're going to load up our transfer and apply that for the recommended application. Check real quick. I believe this transfer, before I completely destroy it, actually is going to be a lower temperature transfer. It is. So I'm going to actually test this at this application, but if it doesn't work, you guys know the drill. We'll just try it at another heat press. Looks like it works pretty well. So obviously follow the recommended applications. Even if you can get a good print on camera, obviously you want to check for durability, and that's a large part of being able to apply at the recommended application. And so this starts to give you an idea of how you can start to personalize and print multiple items with the screen printed transfers in the heat press. And so as we start to look at all of these different items that we can print, one of the biggest opportunities with screen printing, and whether you are looking to do direct screen printing or go the transfer route, one of the big opportunities for transfers is the ability to print performance wear. And so printing performance wear in general, whether it comes from screen printing directly or using heat transfers, can be challenging. The reason being is a lot of polyester moisture-wicking items tend to be heat sensitive. So when I start heat pressing them at 365 degrees, like I just did all of these other applications, it can get to be too hot for the fabric and causes it to scorch or leave what people call a heat press mark or a box. And it happens even in the screen print and dryer if the dryer is set to too high of a heat. And so what we need to do is we need to find a heat transfer ink that cures at a lower temperature. And so the next transfer, I'm actually going to move to my other heat press style called the Max heat press that I have booted down to the temperature specifically for ElastiPrints. And ElastiPrints is that ink formula that's going to guarantee that this transfer is going to apply at 275 degrees and won't scorch this performance fabric. And so by reducing the temperature and the time, it helps to significantly reduce or eliminate those challenges. So I have this heat press set up for 275 degrees. If you're looking to get into heat printing, this is a different style of a heat press. This one's our max clam press, where the one I've been using in the beginning is the Stahls Fusion. Main difference is a clam versus a swing style. Also some different features and functionality. This heat press doesn't actually have a full pressure readout, but both machines will give you a completely durable print and application. So I'm just going to preheat that to get some of the moisture and wrinkles out. Then I'm going to line up my Elasti Print transfer. And remember, this transfer type specifically is saying I can be applied at this low temperature and time. And so I wouldn't want to take the goof-proof transfer that I had applied earlier today and apply it at the same application, because I probably would have failed results, not only in the application but definitely in durability and washing. And so I want to make sure to keep that the same. This heat press is a manual open, so I want to make sure to pop that up. And then this is going to be a cold peel. And so all of the transfers we've looked at so far have actually been a hot peel. So with cold peel applications, what I would do is I would take this off, lay them all off on the side of the table, press my next item, and then when I'm getting ready to box everything up at the end after I finish the job, I'd go back and peel off all the papers. Looks like we're pretty cool here, so I'm going to peel this back. And then we have a completed personalized performance wear t-shirt. And so this opens you up to even more markets and opportunities. This is actually a design that's been done for a run or an event. We can easily personalize some performance wear t-shirts with that, being able to decorate that with the screen printed transfers. And so overall, screen printed transfers are going to offer you a ton of opportunities to get started printing different items for your customers and being able to really get started and jump into this business. And so I've got a couple of polls I want to launch before we head away from the class. Before we leave today, I just wanted to know whether or not you'd be interested in getting a quote on a heat press, as well as learning a little bit more about the marketing kit. And so we'll launch that poll now on whether or not you'd like to get some information on the heat press as you've seen here. Just to keep in mind that getting started with heat printing allows you an opportunity to be able to just really dive into the custom t-shirt market and being able to print more items. And so we'll run that poll now. We can go ahead and close it down, whether or not you'd like some information. And then the marketing kit, and I'll walk back over towards the table so we can talk a little bit about that. But that was the kit that we had looked at that specifically allowed us to actually be able to create some samples for our customers, get access to the Ease of You designer. And the kit runs $49, and so it's a really good investment, especially considering a lot of those color selectors tend to be $30 if you buy them from a supplier. And so it's cool that you get that in the kit along with a $10 coupon and access to everything you've seen here with the designer and the templates. And so Karen, we'll go ahead and close that poll. And then as we get started, or as we're concluding today, I just want to wish you guys all well in getting started and investing into decorating with screen printed transfers or screen printing in general. Hopefully this has given you guys an idea of how to get started. I encourage you to go to the stahlstv.com forums if you have questions as you're diving into this business. Feel free to ask them there. Myself, other decorators, and even educators are on there answering questions all the time. So we appreciate you guys coming on today. Thanks for attending.